We're here at the Warrior exhibit in Fayetteville, Tennessee, and I'm Don Counts, and this is Linda Williams. Linda, who we have today?
We have Mr. Jack Towry with us today, and he's going to share some interesting history plus his military service. So, Mr. Jack, it's all yours.
All right. I was born right here in Fayetteville, Tennessee, Front Street. My mom and dad lived there when I was born, and moved back to the Ridge when they got married. Out on the Ridge, and moved into town. And I had an older brother Charles and a sister Betty Jean, that married Terrell Bynum. Uh, but I was born down on Front Street, and then moved back to the Ridge in 1934 or 5, something like that. I'm not sure. But I lived on the farm, worked on the farm, and with my dad, he was mainly in the fruit business, but produce. But we raised strawberries and sweet potatoes, typical Pea Ridge stuff. But Daddy got into strawberries, and when he got where he couldn't drive, and he was handicapped. But I was born in 1931. I'm 91 years old, and had a loss of memory.
Tell us about marrying Miss June.
Oh, okay. My 1 mile down the road neighbor was Mary June Hopkins Towry, and where she lived, the house is now owned by. It was purchased by Paul Monks and his wife Patsy Towry Monks. Patsy still lives there. She's in her 90s. But anyway, we grew up together more or less, and started courting when I think she said she was 13, and I guess I was 16 when I got old enough to drive and get my driver's license. And but we courted off and on, and back and forth. We had a good group out on the Ridge, and teenagers that. We had square dances. We had hay rides. We had a wonderful growing up life with the kids, and most of them are passed away now. That's in that group. I graduated from Central High School. Went to 8th District, Rocky Knob. Went 1 year to Bellevue, and it was one teacher for two grades, and Mama didn't think I was learning enough, so she put me in 8th District. I rode the bus to Rocky Knob, and did 7 years up there. Graduated in 1946, and went to Central, and graduated in 1950. No, not much longer. After graduating, I was classified 1A. The Korean War was ongoing, and before I knew it, I was on a bus going to Nashville to be with a whole bus load to be examined. And they did had me going to the Army. I did not want to go to the Army. My older brother Charles went to the Navy in 1942, right after Pearl Harbor. It just tore my mom all to pieces. She just knew he was going to go out and the ship be sunk. We had just had a pair of twins, Levi and Oscar Moffett. Moffett, not Oscar Moffett, Oscar Wright. Both went down with their ships, and Mama just knew it. Charles wouldn't, but he went in. He went in Navy Air, and came out okay. Had duty, patrol duty over in the Mediterranean and North Africa, and flying around in PBY Catalina airplanes, looking for submarines. But he was my hero, and I wanted to go to the Navy too. And but I was about to go to the Army and put in for a deferment, and just before I had to go, I got deferred for 1 year. That was 1955, and made a crop. And no sooner than got through and got my invite to go to the Army again. I went to Huntsville. It was in February of '55. I went to Huntsville to join the Navy. I got down there, and the recruitment officer said, "We're full. We're not taking anybody." And I said, "The Air Force will be here next week. You can go to the Air Force." I said, "Okay, I'll go to the Air Force." And got ready to go. Got 41 Chevrolet, and it snowed that night. We headed down and got down Meridianville and Stigger's Curve, and got to the top of the hill, and all the traffic was backed up. And being young and dumb, I hit the brakes. The old Chevrolet turned around backwards and slid all the way down that hill. Mama's screaming the whole. And they said, you won't get up this hill. You know, it's iced over. So maybe later this afternoon, but I knew the Air Force would be gone before then. So I went back home, and I got before I had to go, I got another deferment. So I made it to November of 55. Not 51, I'm sorry. And I went back Navy, and they took me. So I loaded me on a plane, and spent Thanksgiving flying to San Diego. And I was in the Navy. And went through, had no problem. And I requested aviation if possible. My brother was an aircraft electrician, and that's what I wanted to do. And I got it. They sent me to Jacksonville, Florida, to study aircraft A&P school. And my brother happened to be down there as an instructor, so where everything just worked out good. But got through with school, and the way the Navy did it, depending on what your grade was, you could they put all the billets, they call them, up on the board, and you could pick depending on what your grade was. If you had a good grade, you'd go anywhere you wanted to. If you didn't, you ended up aboard a ship. My brother had already told me, he said, don't go aboard a ship if you can help it. Get any kind of shore base. So you're gonna be changed after 2 years anyway. So I made a good friend down there, a guy named Eugene Mims from Birmingham. We became good buddies. We decided we'd go to Kingsville, Texas, and that's what we did. Never heard of Kingsville, Texas before, but down in South Texas, and that's Clayburgh County, where the King Ranch is. I know everybody's heard of King Ranch. It's a naval aircraft training for pilots. They had North Field and South Field. North Field was jets, South Field was props. And I was assigned to ATU 200 as a jets. And now and then I have to go down and work on the props too. So I worked on about everything the Navy had at that time. And 2 years went by, and still at Kingsville, my buddy Gene Mims got shipped down to Coca-Cola, Panama to a patrol squadron. I was still in a training command, and so it didn't look like I was going to get transferred. So June and I decided to get married. November 10th of '53, I came home. I got a week's leave, and we got our marriage license. Went down to Huntsville and got married. I had to leave her here because I didn't have a place for her to live, so I went back and found an apartment. And I came back the Christmas week, and we ended up going to Kansville, and she stayed with me. Our first child was born in '54, and Betty Jean Towry. She lives in Tampa, Florida now. And but anyway, came back home, got discharged. I made second class, petty officer second class, equivalent to sergeant. And I wrote the test for first class, which is master sergeant, 2 times, passed it both times. And we decided we'd ship over. They wrote me orders. I was going to Patuxent River, Maryland, to a patrol squadron. But we had to go to school in Burbank, California first. So I told them I would accept the transfer, the orders, if I made first class. The last time I wrote it, I didn't make it. So we decided we'd come home to Lincoln County. So we got home in about Thanksgiving week of 1955. And farmed the next year with my dad. We had about 4 acres of strawberries. And we made good crops and everything else, and we didn't make any money.
Back breaking work picking those strawberries.
Mm-hmm. And well, any farming is.
Right.
But anyway, reading the Huntsville newspaper, Sunday paper one morning, and Hayes Aircraft in Birmingham needing aircraft electricians. Pay $2.30 an hour. Just come on down.
Back then, that was probably good.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. So June and I talked it over, and she said she'd never marry a farmer anyway.
Well, she did. Be careful with
That's right. So I drove down to Birmingham, went to Hayes Aircraft. They were modifying our old Air Force planes, bringing them out of the desert and making tankers out of them, B-50s. And I hired on in February. Went down and found a house. We moved down there. Labor Day, a week before Labor Day, I got my layoff notice.
Oh, mercy.
So myself and 3 other mechanics, A&P mechanics, decided we'd drive down to the Cape and look for work. And we went to Martin Marietta and Lockheed and places down there, and wasn't nothing open. And a lady at the recruitment office said, why don't you go to Miami? All the airlines are hiring maintenance people. We said, well, what the heck, we're this far down. So we drove on down to Miami. We went to National, we went to Delta, we went to Eastern, we went to Pan Am, put in applications. Came back home in a week. Eastern Airlines sent me a telegram, said, we want you now. And so they had a ticket, sent a ticket.
Wow.
So I flew down, went over out of Chattanooga, went over to Chattanooga, and flew down and interviewed, and I'd already talked to a recruitment office, but they said, when can you come? When will you come? We're in desperate need. So I said, give me a week. So I went back home and got my clothes together and said, well, in Miami, you don't need nothing heavy. This was in October. Drove down, left June, and I had a daughter and a son by then. And went to work. And I started looking for a place to rent, and hired on October 7 of 57. And found a house and drove back over Christmas weekend. I didn't have any vacation. Long Christmas weekend. I rented a U-Haul in Miami Lakes and pulled it all the way back to up here because I saved money.
Yeah.
Loaded up what little we had and took off to Miami. 30 years later, I took early retirement.
Now, Miss June taught in the school system.
She taught in, she was in Murfreesboro, MTSU, when we got married. And after the kids got big enough, and she went back to Miami-Dade Junior College and started teaching in it. We found a nice church down there in the Palm Springs Baptist Church, and we were there most of the time. We were down there till she took a job at Dade Christian private school. Then she had to be a member up there, so we moved her membership up there. While we were down there, I did a lot of fishing. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I loved to fish. We fished the Everglades. We fished the Keys, the Atlantic, and the Gulf. And did we ever catch fish? We got pretty good at it. So, but anyway, in 1970, because we had free transportation. We'd fly to L.A. or San Francisco or Seattle, rent a car and drive for a week.
Yeah.
Then we rented an RV in Seattle, drove all over Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and southwestern Canada. We got more ambitious later on. My brother he stayed in for 25 years in the Navy. Retired doing recruitment duty in Odessa, Midland, Texas. And when he retired, he went back to college, got his master's degree, and started teaching schools there. You got any water? You got any water? My mouth's getting dry. But we fly over, anywhere we wanted to, and we really enjoy that. But my brother said, why don't we drive to Alaska? I said, okay, I'm game. So in 1978, I bought a new Ford pickup, dual tanks, fixed bunks in the back of it. Thanks, dear. I'll clean it up. But we drove to Alaska. I took 30 days, built up 30 days vacation. We drove from Miami to Alaska.
Oh, wow.
And used every bit of it. Drove all the way to, we went to Anchorage, went up to Fairbanks, went into Yukon, and great trip. Junior and I had never camped in our life. But we stayed in a motel one time. It was pouring down rain, and what was the name of that place down in below Anchorage? But anyway, we got a motel, and that was the only time. And
Tell us what you did when you came back to Fayetteville to live, about the cemeteries.
well, I took early retirement to begin with in 1987, and before I left, I got a call while still at Eastern. They said, "Would you be interested in a consultant job? We know you're going to Tennessee, retire. We got an outfit that's bought two A300s, Italia, out of Italy, and they need avionics consultant." And I said, "No, I'm retiring. I'm done." He said, "Well, you need to go over and talk to the people." So I went over there, and the deal they offered me, I couldn't turn it down. I said, "Well, this is on a Friday evening," and I said, "Let me talk to my wife." So we started talking it over, and she said, I got a contract. I got to finish teaching, and it won't be through till June." I said, "Well, I could go. This offer, it'll make our retirement. We don't have to worry about nothing." And so I told him I'd take it. So we drove home, and I went up there. Supposed to be a 6-month contract. It took us a year to get both aircraft completely modified to their specs, and so I retired from there, and just got into doing whatever. And one of the first things I got into while I was working up there, I was driving back and forth every day here to Smyrna. Well, after June retired and moved up. We moved up and got completely moved. And we had already bought a house in 1980, and where we're living now. But I lost my...
I want to hear about the cemeteries.
Okay. I'm working towards that way. Well, I was working up at Smyrna. After I retired, about 6 months, I got a phone call from the head honcho up at Cross Continent in Smyrna. Said, "We need you." We got a contract on DC-8s. I said, "I ain't worked on a DC-8. Said, "You won't be working on them, you'll be supervising." I said, "Well, still." I said, "Okay." So I went up there, and they made me avionics manager of the shop up there. But while I was up there, she found out about Leadership Lincoln. Went through Leadership Lincoln, and said, "What a great program it is. You got to go through it when you retire from again." And I said, "I don't need that. I know enough about Lincoln County." But I got back, retired again the last time, and I said, "That's it for aviation." So 1990, I did the census. I always wanted to do the census because I was into genealogy, and I loved working with the old census. So I did the 1990 census and thoroughly enjoyed it. And but after 1994, I was asked to run for county commissioner, and I did, unopposed, didn't have no opposition. And I got in and found out that they wanted to send me to Leadership Lincoln. So I accepted, and that's one of the best things I ever did. 20 years later, I retired from leadership Lincoln. But while as a county commissioner, I was on it 10 years, and I got defeated because of the concerned citizens of Lincoln County did not want a new hospital. You remember that episode?
Well, I do.
And
Very well.
I got defeated, and so I got in. I said, "Well, I stayed in leadership. You know that. 20 years, I think, I spent in leadership, Lincoln, and I still say it's a great program. I think they got a good class this year, and got into the historical society. June had already got into that, and so got involved with historical society. Got involved with genealogy society because I had got started with my Towry family, and got it built up to where we have national reunions every year. And but anyway, one of the things I want to do, one of my projects in Genealogy Society, is resurveying all the cemeteries, active cemeteries, because the only survey that ever been done was done by Helen and Tim Marsh over in Shelbyville. And of course, they were from Lincoln County originally before they moved over there. So on my own, I started going through cemeteries. And then a gentleman came from North Carolina by the name of Don Mills from the Heritage Book Company, wanting Lincoln County to do a heritage book. We went to always free dinners and everything to get us interested. And we decided we would do a heritage book for Lincoln County. And I got elected chairman. And so that did away with our my cemetery project. And we did the heritage book. It took us about 5 years to do it, and ended up with a heritage book that thick. And Mr. Don Mills from North Carolina he passed away a couple of years ago. But anyway, after doing that, Jerry Mansfield called me and asked me if I would be interested in being on the bicentennial, Lincoln County 200-year bicentennial. Well, I told him I would, along with a bunch more. I was elected chairman of that, and
They kept you busy.
and I had some good help. John Ed Underwood, Peggy Bevels, oh yeah, I just go on and on. People that was on that committee, and but one of our projects, besides putting a monument on the courthouse square over on the west side, I guess you're all familiar with that project we did. We worked with the advanced high school history class and let them work on picking a project. One of the projects we wanted to do was at, I don't know if you've been to the bicentennial Tennessee Mall at the Capitol, that big ball that floats on water. That's what we wanted to do for here. But because of different difficulties, the big marble had to come from India. It was some reason that we couldn't get it in time. So we went with a different, what we ended up with, the big Lincoln County shape with all the old name towns on it. But another project we decided to do for the bicentennial was a history, pictorial history books. We did one, and I set up at the bank over here on East College Street, and run it in the paper. Bring you pictures for me to copy, and that way you can copy them. I'll copy them. Won't cost you nothing. You can take your pictures home with you. So people are so particular with their pictures, and I know I copied thousands of them, and many of them they didn't even know who they were. Some of those military, they couldn't give me a name for them. But we did the pictorial one, and we did it by communities, and it came out so good we decided to do. I had so many pictures left over. So we'll do a volume 2 pictorial history. We finished it, and when we got through with that, we still got a few copies. We decided Genealogy Society would get back to the cemeteries. So we started out, and we had about maybe 10 or 12 that went out and surveyed all the cemeteries. We started out doing the active cemeteries. Ended up doing a lot of the little front yard, backyard cemeteries, family cemeteries. Because people had come later in years and put monuments down that we had no record, and the Marshes did not do any of them. So anyway, we ended up with 2 volumes, 2 400 and something page volumes. And not only did we put all the names, pictures of the cemeteries, we put genealogy of everybody we could. Sons of, daughters of, wives of, spouses of, so-and-so. And those books, we printed them 3 times, reprinted them. They still sold out, and they were $80 a piece. And but Randy Delap called me before the end of the year, said, "You got a problem with us doing some more of the cemetery books?" We had to quit doing the hardbound because our binder in Nashville went out of business. We couldn't get anybody to bind them, and we were having to go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to get somebody to bind them. They would come to Huntsville and call us when they were coming, and we'd take our books down. 6 months later, we'd get them back. So we just quit trying to bind any more books. But speaking of the genealogy building, and I spoke about being in the Historical Society, one of the sad things about Lincoln County right now is we don't have any volunteers to follow up what all we've done. The Historical Society is, we just don't have any members. Clark Widener and June and myself are really only 3. Don White still. Of course, we don't have a membership anymore because they didn't have nobody coming. And we're having to do the same thing with the Genealogy Society because it's down to Mark Mitchell, Dora Whitsonet, June and myself. Is all the members that does anything. We still meet people. Somebody called from Timbuktu wanting to come to Lincoln County, we tell them, give us a date and we'll meet you. I'm 91. Dora Whitsonet is 88. June's 88. I'm not sure how old Mark is, but he didn't want to do it all by himself, and we know we can't keep doing it. So rather than have the genealogy just not go anywhere, have anybody take it over, we decided that we'd, if the county would accept it, we'd turn it over to the archives. Only problem was the archives wasn't big enough, the one that they got now. We've been trying to get a building for years, and we finally got one in the works. So the old police building, 10,000 square feet of space. And
Mr. Jack, I want to thank you personally for what you've done for the Warrior exhibit, because you've submitted a bunch of pictures that we didn't have and didn't know about.
I wish I could identify them.
Well,
And-
the ones you just gave me were identified.
Well, I had names on most of them,
Uh-huh.
and I got kinfolks that don't have pictures in here. I do. Now I can't.
It is aggravating.
It's aggravating. It really is. But June and I have been so blessed, and we had 4 children. We got 10 grandchildren, and 18 great grandchildren.
Wow.
All healthy. I've been chairman of Pleasant Grove Cemetery. That's where all the Toweries, most all the Toweries are buried, over 200 and something down there. I took over from Mr. Junior Montz in 1990, and I hope I can get through this year mowing.
Now, where is Pleasant?
It's on Pleasant Grove, Bellevue area, between Skinham and Bellevue, on Pleasant Grove Road. That farm, my great-great-grandfather, Martin Jesse Towry, first came to Lincoln County with his dad, John Towry, and 4 uncles came to Lincoln County before Lincoln County was even a county. We know that to be a fact because Thomas, one of the brothers, Thomas, was one of the first deputies of Lincoln County in 1810. And I just found out the gentleman, Mr. Jack, I got his name, that did the I can't, my mind went blank. But anyway, he did a survey of all the land grants that these people got when they came from Lincoln, from North Carolina. He found where my great uncles, Mandarin, my 3rd great grandfather, John, Isaac, James, all had land grants between Skinham and Camargo. And I live 1 mile from where their land grants were. Martin Jesse, my great-great-grandfather, was 3 years old when he came to Lincoln County. Grew up in 1819, John sold out, and when they removed the Indians from Marion County, just back east of us, he moved over there and got ran over there. We found out where he went to church. We never did find out where he lived, but we found the Primitive Baptist Church where they went to church over at Sweeten Cove. As you cross over Mount Eagle, and there's a mountain on each side. The one on the left, you go over that mountain, you're in Sweeten Cove. And but Martin Jesse grew up to be a man and married Sarah Womack in Coffee County. In 1837, he bought 300 acres here in Lincoln County for $300. And the family, I got it on the 150 year what do they call it? Families have farmed that land continuously.
Yeah.
Century
Century Farm, yeah. So it's on a 150-year Century Farm. My granddaughter's living on it now,
Wow.
and we don't farm it ourselves. We rent it out to the Motlows, but
Yeah.
it's still in the family
In the
name.
family,
Yes.
yes,
So,
yes.
oh,
We thank you for all you've done for Lincoln County. You've done a lot.
I've enjoyed every bit of it.
We appreciate
Every
you.
bit of it. I didn't miss a host of Christmas pies for, I think, 18 years. Cooking corn dogs and going. Excuse me.
We appreciate you. We need to sit down and do this again because you could talk all day.
I know he could.
If my memory's starting to go too. I'm having trouble remembering names.
Oh, I have that problem every day. But thank you so much for coming.
I
and
think
doing this
everybody
interview.
does.
Thank you, Jack.
I don't know what I missed.
It's all right.
I don't believe you missed much in your life.
I haven't. We had a great life.
You've had a good life. We appreciate
We
it.
have. My military service was, I probably had it as easy as anybody.
But I wanted to make that point that what you learned in the military, you made a living out of.
It gave me a living, a good living. I went to Eastern, $2.17 an hour. So,
Jack Towry, thank you.
you're welcome. You're very welcome.